Hello, my lovelies. Welcome back. Today we are discussing the Fallout Show Season 2. Now, I did not write a script for this video. I just took notes while I was watching the show, and then I to be honest, wasn't going to make a video about this season, but enough people have asked for my thoughts that I figured I would just sit down and read you all of the notes I took as I was watching it. So this isn't going to be the most organized, but I think a lot of people, if you're like me, sometimes you just want something on in the background talking about something you like. So maybe that's what this is for you. Maybe you clicked because I'm sure I'm going to make the title something like, I didn't like it. And maybe you want to come yell at me. So I just want to do a little table setting first. If you liked this show, that is okay. I think so many parts of this show were just wonderful and joyful. And if you didn't like the show, that is also okay. We're not going to call each other stupid or any name calling here. I think my personal experience... Oh, sorry, I should introduce myself. Hi, I'm If Then Create. Sorry, I don't know if you're coming from my normal videos or this just popped up in your feed, but regardless, I'm If Then Create. I am a software engineer with way too many side projects. I really like video games, making websites, different sort of crafts, all that good stuff. We are talking about the Fallout Show Season 2. Okay, there, that was my intro. I did it. I think a thing to keep in mind that I sort of wanted to talk about first is my personal context with Fallout and just sort of games in general, because I feel like I came to video games kind of later than most people. And a big part of that is because I was told explicitly for a very long time that video games weren't for me. There wasn't a place for me in this sort of gaming sphere. And given the comments that I often get on some of my let's play Fallout but cozy videos, I think a lot of my audience has sort of felt that same way. It's really hard to feel on the outskirts of something that isn't for you, or to be told that something isn't for you. And I think that might be why I'm sort of digging my heels in with when I criticize the show. If I say something, and I have made TikToks being like, I didn't like that part, I get a slew of comments from people who just tell me to get out of this space then. That it's not for me at all, go watch a different show, play a different game, nobody wants me here. And I think that amount of vitriol is sort of making me dig my heels in a little more to what was mostly a neutral reaction to the show. I watched all of it. I really liked some parts of it. I really didn't like other parts of it, but that's okay. And then I critiqued some things, and that awakened this fandom that wanted me, or that often wants me out. It's not like I got a ton of hate comments. I just got some comments that were like, don't watch it then, insert insert mean word for woman here. And I think that is causing me to sort of double down and be like, no, I thought parts of it were bad, because I did think parts of it were bad. But I just want to give that disclaimer in this sort of table setting section that I think I am being a little bit unfair to the show and sort of claiming my position as I didn't like it, when in truth, I enjoyed parts of it. I enjoyed watching it. I made it through all the episodes. That's more than I can say about a lot of shows. So just setting expectations there. I do want to give the show its flowers right off the bat, because it did a lot of things, as I'm talking about being a woman in gaming spaces and pushback to that and people getting mad at me for that. I want to give the show its flowers for being woke, I guess. I don't really have a better word for what I'm trying to say, but the fact that there were queer relationships represented, that there's a non-binary actor playing a non-binary character, the show absolutely deserves its flowers for that. And I just want to take a second to say how much I appreciated that and how much I think it brought value to the show, because I know that there are going to be a bunch of people out there saying the opposite, just knowing the internet. So I loved those parts. I loved that bit of writing. I love that actor. Who's that actor? I'm looking them up. Yeah, the actor that plays Dane uses he, they pronouns and has said that Dane is a non-binary member of the Brotherhood. And I love that. I love seeing more representation on television. It means a lot to me and a lot of people I care about, and the show absolutely deserves praise for that. I think something I'm struggling with the show at all is it's difficult to see something you love so much adapted, and especially adapted by a huge conglomerate like Amazon Prime. I think it's different watching smaller creators do things. I'll explain what I mean, because I keep thinking of God, this is this is not a great comparison to make. I keep thinking of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And I am aware that a lot of people that I talk to about video games don't also watch or consume any content related to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So just to catch you up, the Rocky Horror Picture Show is a cult classic movie came out in, I think, 1975. It still to this day is running and has midnight showings. People dress up as the characters in it and like reenact the movie in front of the movie. I'm a big fan. I have been since, God, middle school. I still go to it now. That's context. The part that's relevant is that a few years ago, Fox made a remake of the movie, The Rocky Horror Picture Show. It's called like Rocky Horror Picture Show Let's Do the Time Warp Again. It's got a bunch of people in it. You might recognize some of their names even if you have no idea what I'm talking about. But in general, that movie was poorly received by an audience that loves the same movie they've been watching for 50 years, that a lot of people go see, you know, every time there's a midnight showing of it near them. And I've been thinking about it a lot lately because I've been asking myself, like, okay, how can I hate the Rocky Horror Picture Show remake, but I like seeing Shadowcast do the same thing? And what it's made me realize is that it's not necessarily like about the quality of the execution. It's about paying homage to something that you love. And if I can zoom out and view that movie as an homage in the same way that I view the Shadowcast when I go see it, as just people who are really passionate about these things, trying to bring them to life in new ways, I can appreciate it again. You know what I mean? And I think with the Fallout show, it's the same way in that, you know, if I go to a convention and I see somebody dressed up as a Vault Dweller, I get such a kick out of that. If I see, you know, an NCR Ranger costume, whatever, I get so much joy. And so seeing the same things in the Fallout show, for me, it's a little bit the same that I feel about the movie remake of Rocky Horror. And like, why did this need to be made? Are you really adding any value as this like multi-billion-dollar conglomerate? What are you adding to it? Are you adding new storylines? Are you adding good writing? I think if I can zoom out and just appreciate it as like, it is an homage. And the actors, well, I don't know how many of the actors truly love the games because in some interviews it sounds like they haven't played all of the games, but regardless, I am sure that there were people who worked on the show clearly in the set design and costume design, and probably some of the writers. Like, I'm sure a lot of people who worked on the show were really excited to work on the show and pay homage to this thing that they loved so much. And that brings me joy. Like, truly, there are parts of the show, especially for me, seeing the King's School of Impersonation in the background, that really, I got a kick out of that. And I can appreciate those bits as the homage to the thing that I love as they are. But in the same way that I didn't love the Rocky Horror Picture Show remake, I don't think the show is as good as the games. It's an homage. And I think that that is often the case in situations like this. So it's not necessarily a positive or a negative. It just is. I also wanted to highlight, though, because I keep circling around, like, I don't think it was good. I don't think the writing was good. I don't think that they executed the themes that I would have enjoyed most in the show. And I'm careful to say that because I know that my preference in storytelling isn't necessarily everybody's. It's not objectively correct. There are some themes in the show that I didn't like. And even though I don't have a script for this video, which means we're going to kind of ramble in a few different directions, we're going to keep coming back to one theme in particular. I think that the show and the game set out to prove different premises. I think that the games tend to tell stories in the post-apocalypse to show that there are always stories worth finding and people worth helping and quests worth doing, even in, you know, post-apocalypse, the worst has happened and we can still build together. And I think the show has set out to do something a little different, which is Wasteland corrupts everybody. And that's not necessarily a bad theme, but it is one we see come up again and again. And as somebody who plays the games as kind and curious and generous, it was difficult to see I want to say that not represented, but of course it doesn't need to be represented because a bunch of people don't play the games that way. And that is also such a valid way to play. I think the joy of so many of these Bethesda games is that you can max out, you can max out any stat, right? You can do a super low intelligence run, a super high charisma run, a super high strength run. You can do all these different ways of playing this game, and they're all valid, and the developers and the writers of the games have put so much time and energy into making each of those playthroughs feel rewarding and good and fun. The dialogue that you unlock in some of these games by being a low intelligence character is it is funny, it's rewarding, it's compelling. I think the games truly do reward you for trying different things and being different characters and approaching it in different ways. And so it's hard to see the show harp on the same message again and again and again, which is that mercy isn't worth it. And we will revisit this, I promise. I'm going to try and prove that point to you, that mercy isn't worth it and that hope is naive. I think the show does that a few times. I know it's in my notes as we're going to go through them. So we'll revisit that. I just wanted to call it out as the closest thing to a theme this rambling video is going to have. That was a lot of talking. I don't usually record videos in here at night either, so I put a blue light behind me to make the background a little more interesting. Usually I'm just like in the corner of your screen a little bit, and now I'm big. I hope you like it. Okay, we're launching into my notes. Episode 1. I did not organize it. I didn't proofread these notes before I decided to sit down and make this video. I just wrote them as I was watching the show week by week. And so this is my first time seeing a lot of them too. So, Episode 1. This show is trying too hard to be a mystery political thriller. I stand by that. Honestly, I think that's a lot of what shows are popular right now and are doing well. I think of Severance, how it was this big mystery show that was like, what's going on? And I think the Fallout show this season really tried to be that. It tried to do a lot of like, who dropped the bombs? Like they're leaking out details about, Coop's wife. They're leaking out details about, later the Enclave, but they did that in season 1 too, so I don't think it's a spoiler to say Enclave. Frankly, and I wrote this, I don't care nearly as much about what happened before the bombs drop as I do how people rebuilt. The tagline of the games, war never changes. I know people interpret this in a bunch of different ways. To me, I think it means, humans are always going to find reasons to fight with each other. And that's kind of the boring part. If human beings' needs aren't met, if they don't have enough food or water or resources or safety or housing, they will fight. War never changes. That's always going to happen. You're always going to have some group who's trying to grab something for another group. There are a million companies out there today and in Fallout who want to gain that foot up advantage and who are going to look for ways to make the most profit. Great. That part never changes. War never changes. To me, that's what that means. I know other people interpret it in different ways. But to me, that means that we can kind of skip the war part. The bombs dropped. Not in playing any of the Fallout games have I gotten stuck on, but who dropped the bombs? I hope we start playing Fallout 4. We've come out of the vault. The bombs have dropped. The world that you know is gone. You need to find your kid. You need to find Sean. What happened? There's not that there's not value, but it is not your top priority to go back in time 200 years and explore the geopolitical tensions and reveal who it was that hit the button, because frankly, it doesn't matter. You are in the here and now of the bombs have fallen. And yes, it's interesting. It's always interesting, but it's not the big bad mystery when we have so much in the new present to build on and explore. And you might be just seething hearing me say that. I know that some people are, because people have fought me about this when I say it on my other platforms, in my shorts. I think that the war part is boring. I care about how people have rebuilt. Those are always, it's my favorite part in the games. It's walking into Diamond City, walking into New Vegas, just seeing how people have been living and unearthing the details of how that new society works and has come together, and the creative problem solving and the new world. That is the fascinating part of Fallout to me. It's maybe I'm alone in that. That's okay. But that's how I feel. Okay, my notes here reference a specific timestamp, so I am actually going to pull up the show and see if I can find that timestamp. What was this? Episode 1, 1550. Oh, okay. This is in episode 1 when Lucy is in the dino's mouth in Novak, and instead of going forward with her plan that she had with the ghoul to sort of attack these people, she is trying to logic with them. Side note about the dinosaur, I also have in my notes here, Novak doesn't have a swimming pool there. The dino doesn't face that way. We're going to do a tangent. We're going to do a little bit of a tangent. I am not sure who this show is for, because my friends in real life who are not as into video games as I am, some of them clicked on this show because it was, number 1 on Prime, and they clicked on it. They knew that I really like Fallout. Not one of them got through episode 1. They found it so gory, so disgusting. It's the parts of Fallout that I love, the sort of the fun, the music, the gore, the 50, like it's everything I love. So it's not for people who have never played the games before. Personally, I don't think. I know some other people have said it is. None of my friends who I know in real life who are not on video games were able to get into it. In fact, they were very put off by it. And that's fine. But I also don't think it's for super hardcore fans who care about things like which way the dino is facing. Because personally, I care about which way the dino is facing. I would have loved to see the inside of the dino, to see her, crawling up in it and realizing it could be used as a sniper's nest, maybe finding some leftover stuff there, sort of looking out and being like, we can use this for a plan, instead of just what it was, which was just, it's a prop, it's an Easter egg, it's there. But if you're going to do it as an Easter egg, to have it facing the wrong way feels frustrating, I think is the word I want to use. So anyway, back to 1550. This is where she's trying to convince them to stand down. To me, this is a charisma check. A charisma check, they happen in the game all the time. She's just trying to convince them or somebody of something using just her charisma. And that's so valid. And I'm hoping as I'm watching it, I'm hoping this works, because this is what I do in the games. Every time I have the opportunity for a charisma check, I take it. I love when it succeeds. And it's okay when it fails. I love when it succeeds. So she makes this charisma check and it fails, of course, brutally. I would have loved, and I said this about season 1 too, I would have loved if some of Lucy's charisma checks passed. I would love that. People say she's such a sweet character. She's such a charismatic character. I would argue she's not, because every time she tries to use her charisma, it fails. And what I would have really loved is if the show even lampshaded that in a tongue-in-cheek kind of, if we heard the sound effect of the charisma check failing. I forget what it is. I can put it over here if I find it. Hello, Editing Reagan here. I have no idea what I was talking about here, because as far as I can tell, failing a charisma check doesn't actually have a sound effect. There is a sound effect if you pass a charisma check, and that is just the gain experience sound, which sounds like this. So that might have been what I was thinking of, but there are other good sound effects in the game they could have used here or made a new one, like even this simple little one when you enter the wrong password while hacking. Anyway, yeah, just wanted to clear that up. I think I was thinking of the pass sound, but yeah, there you go. But if that sound played when she failed, that would have been a fun Easter egg to me to nod to, hey, she's trying a charisma check and she's failing it, instead of what the actual result is, which just makes her look kind of dumb for trying. And you can disagree with me on that one, but it's going to happen a lot more throughout the show, throughout these episodes, that Lucy is going to try to do the kind thing, the merciful thing, and it is going to blow up in her face in a way that starts to, after so much repetition, make her look naive and kind of dumb and I guess those are the two words I wanted to use. Naive and dumb. So this one, it's just the first time it happens, so we don't have a pattern yet. I would have loved a little, hey, this charisma check failed. How cool would that have been to hear the little sound instead of just, she shouldn't have done that, is what it ends up being. Just she shouldn't have done that. Whoops, she's wrong. The next thing in my notes, though, is Big Iron, the editing, the soundtrack, the gore, delightful. And it is, truly. I can't play it here. I can't play, those copyrighted songs on my channel at all. But just watching that scene and having Big Iron play, it is, it's everything I wanted it to be. It's a joy. Okay, what's next? Oh, 1709. I have a note about the radiation and the ghouls. 1709. I wish I could play this for you. Instead, I'm just watching it on my monitor. So this is when Ghoul, I'm going to refer to him as Ghoul when we're in the post-apocalypse and Coop when we're in the pre-apocalypse. So this is when the Ghoul holds up a radiated something to heal his neck. I have big issues with how they've sort of rewritten Ghoul lore to be how they go feral or not. It seems to be pretty heavily implied that there is a medication now in the show that we haven't seen in the games that heals them from going feral, that he has a constant supply of. But now we're also making it explicitly clear that radiation can also heal him. And later we'll see more of this too, how maybe radiation can also prevent going feral, but it's, again, not a thing we see in the games. I know people like to claim as a fact that radiation heals all ghouls all the time. That is true some of the time in some of the games about some of the ghouls. But in Fallout 4, for example, if I just pick up a radiation weapon and I start firing it at somebody, I've tested this before in shorts. I think you can still find them. I will look and try and link for it. But if you just shoot a ghoul, they do take radiation damage. Like they still take radiation damage. So it's not true in all of the games. And it's frustrating that the show just seems to be like layering new information to try and set this new foundation for how ghouls work instead of investigating that's not really how ghouls work. Like, we don't know why ghouls go feral. It's definitely not because of lack to a drug, because we've never seen that drug in any of the games. It's frustrating to me that they're just adding this, like, I don't know. I guess radiation is a healing factor when you have like a glowing one who can heal ghouls around it. The drug thing I think bothers me the most, and this infinite healing from the radiation does kind of seem like an overpowered perk. I don't love it. It's not my favorite thing in the world, but that's where my notes are for this part. Editing Reagan here again. I found the clip that I was talking about where I went in Fallout 4 and tried shooting a ghoul with radiation. This was actually from my Season 1 Fallout recap, but I will put it here just so you don't have to go searching for it. I'm really not proud of what I'm about to do here, but this is for science. So I'm going to get just a regular pistol first, and we're going to shoot him in the leg and see if it regenerates. I do have a gamma gun, so this is pure radiation. And what some of you have been arguing is like, well, that is what would heal him. Okay, so the right leg is what I hit, so let's hit that with radiation. That actually shouldn't have hurt him at all. He used a stim pack. Okay, so he's healing because of the stim pack. That finished. He's not healing more than that. Let's try hitting him with more radiation. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you guys. The ghouls in the games do not have the supercharged healing abilities that they have in the show. That's just not what happens. I'm sorry, Zao. Skipping ahead a few minutes more. What did I have here? I have a note about the Vault-Tec guy. Oh, there we go. Yeah. We do have a Vault-Tec guy going door to door, and I just have a note. That's really fun. Oh, and I have another note here I want to talk about. This is the first theme that's new in these pre-war themes, or in these pre-war scenes, the amount that people panic. I think that's a really interesting theme to explore, and I wish they had stuck with it a little bit longer. Coop see how fast people escalate from there just being a test of an alert system. People are panicky. What's that quote from Men in Black? A person is smart, but people are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals, and you know it. And that's so true, and that's such a fascinating theme and question in this like post-apocalyptic story when you have a global level threat like nuclear annihilation. How do people respond to it, and how can you control their responses, and how can a company like Vault-Tec take advantage of how people in general respond to a situation? And that was so fascinating to me, and I really hoped that we were going to see more about that, but we aren't gonna. I'm just gonna spoil it for you now. That's not a theme that we're gonna build out on, because what the show is gonna do instead is swap around to a bunch of different scenes. But we're gonna go through my notes one by one. We're gonna get there, I promise. Then we jump to scenes back in the vault. I don't love how stupid they're making the Vault Dwellers look. They really make them look super, like, comically dumb. And, like, the overseer, you know, the pre-war manager people are the only, like, people. I wish that they had characterized the Vault Dwellers a little better. Like, I understand what they're doing, and it's funny, and it's fun, whatever. But it's frustrating a little bit to me just how stupid they are. Not frustrating. Maybe just like a bummer. I love the Vault Dwellers. I love thinking about what life could be like in a vault. And to have this entire vault of people who are just so childish, like so comically childish and inept, that it begins to get a little grating on, like, okay, but surely some of them would be like smarter than that. I don't know. I guess some of them are. I guess you have Chet, who becomes very humanized. You have Lucy, obviously. You have Norm. I guess you do have some. So I'm not sure why it rubbed me such the wrong way that so many of them felt inept. I wish I was better at media analysis. I feel like my media literacy is not the super best. I know I'm going to get a bunch of comments. I don't know I'm going to get a bunch of comments. I hope people watch this video. I'm sure I will get at least one comment correcting me on some things. And you're probably going to be right. Honestly, I miss a lot. I'm human. Oh, but I did hate how in the vault they have like candy and they have fruit. Like they have I don't know why. No, I do know why this bothered me so much. I love speculative fiction. I love reading sci-fi. It truly scratches my brain really good when there is fiction that has thought really hard about the world that it is creating. So for example, the Becky Chambers books, the Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, that's a series of some like cozy sci-fi books. And there is one book in there that's about the like human fleet, the like Exodus fleet, they call them, of people who have left Earth and sort of made their lives in these spaceships, these generational ships. And the way that book goes into detail about how neighborhoods are organized, how shopping is organized, how food is organized, how what's it called? How disposing of dead bodies functions, how like funerals and stuff. When the characters eat, they usually describe eating fish because it's easier to raise fish than it is to raise livestock in this sort of environment. And you can tell the author has done a ton of thought into what would be available, what can they eat, and then what becomes part of their culture. So even as characters, you know, they're not talking about it. They're not saying like, I am eating fish now because that's what's available on a generational ship. You just notice sort of in the background that the way they live is very conscious of the situation that they're in and the world that's being built. And what's bothering me in the Fallout show is that these Vault Dwellers, they have like candy and they have fruit. Like, where is that growing? Because they're limited to what they can grow in the vault. And we know that. And they've talked about like they had a weevil famine. We know that sometimes the diversity of the produce they have available is significantly restricted because of things like that. So is there a seed vault? Are there fruit trees? Like I'm so hungry for more information. In the games, you have to scale stuff down. So, you know, the player character can walk around it. You know, you take a city, the whole of Boston or the whole of DC or whatever, and you have to shrink it down. So obviously in the vaults that we see in game, we don't have enough farmland that could realistically support that many people. But in the show, they had an opportunity to show us that and explore that. And I know not everybody is as interested in, okay, how many square footage of farmland would it take to support a vault full of people? But you know what? I'm really interested in that. Okay? I am. I'm really interested in what the best way to support an entire vault population would be. And even if they didn't explicitly say it, I would have loved just some nod to that with the food that they were eating. And instead, it just seemed like they had unlimited snacks. And maybe they do have, you know, this entire pre-war vault store of gelatin that they can make Jell-O forever for their little snack club. Maybe they do. But then I would have loved some acknowledgement that like even that is finite. Because they do later, not now, we're still only on episode 1. Oh, God. Uh-oh. But they're going to acknowledge, like, there are shortages of things in the vault. And they're only going to talk about the water rationing of it. But it would have been cool to also see that maybe the storerooms are getting low. Maybe they had 200 years worth of supplies of gelatin and these Jell-O things. And maybe even that's getting low. Like, that would be more interesting to me and more aware of the limitations of the world that we're in. Maybe it's weird that I like limitations of worlds. Maybe for other people, the joy is just not thinking about the limitations. Maybe I'm being a stick in the mud. Totally possible. Totally possible. I would have liked more acknowledgement of how the world in the vault works and how they handled it instead, which was to kind of not acknowledge it at all, was a bummer. It just felt like a missed opportunity. It wasn't necessarily like bad writing. It was just a missed opportunity. I have in my notes next, Bud, parentheses, brain Roomba, is like comically evil and not real evil, so that's more annoying than compelling. Yeah, I stand by that. This says, I'm going to bring him to justice. I don't have a timestamp there, so I don't know what I was talking about. I'm assuming that's something Lucy says about Hank. And I wrote next to it, I was like, do you think he deserves that? Like, is this about restorative justice? Because again, I think that's an interesting theme. Like, I think you can ask the question of, does restorative justice exist in a post-apocalyptic world like this? Can somebody be brought to justice if they are just evil? And I wish that we were going to explore that theme a little more. But again, like I said before, and like I'm going to continue to say, I think the show more wants to prove her wrong than anything, assuming this is a quote about Lucy. The next quote I have written down is, look at your alternative, which I don't know what that's about either. Who am I talking about? It must be the ghoul, because that's what's happening in the show. But the note I have next to that is, why is the entire wasteland bad? And I think that, again, is what's going to continue to bother me. The factions that I tend to like in these games and that I side with and build up are things like the Minutemen, like factions that are good, the Followers in New Vegas, factions that are good and just trying to be good and trying to help other people. Like, there is goodness. Even in a wasteland, I think you're still going to find people who want to help and who are worth helping. And I mean, that's what companions show us in the games, is there are always people who are worth getting to know and who will support you. And so it's frustrating that we have moments in the show that sort of overly simplify it as like the wasteland is bad and everybody in the wasteland is bad and everybody's corrupt. Because like, not everybody is corrupt. I do have a timestamp next to this next note. 3311. I just wrote in all caps, Starlight Drive-In. Is there a Starlight Drive-In here? I think so. Yeah, I think it's just like another little Easter egg. That's fun. Wakakami, I have in my notes, that's also delightful, delicious. There's a scene, a pre-war scene with Coop in a yellow kitchen, I think it is. I think it's Coop. And I just have, the set design is so beautiful. And it really is. Again, I think I love just like, put me in a new world and explore that new world. And the kitchens that they have in this 1950s Americana, futuristic, retro futurism. I think it's called the ray gun, like aesthetic of the like futuristic, not really present. It's so beautiful. And the set design, I can tell how much love has gone into the set design. I think it's beautiful. And then again, I have a note that I assume is about the snacks in the vault. Back to the vault. The popcorn is a snack in the box. Who boxed it? Do they have manufacturing? Because again, I'm back on my, where did the food come from? How is the food system set up? What are the limitations of this vault? Are there manufacturing jobs in the vault? Because we know they have farmland. We know they have corn on that sort of farmland in the vault. Is somebody boxing this up? Like, are they branding and making these popcorn boxes? I know it doesn't matter. I know that most people watched the show and did not pause and write down who boxed the popcorn as a snack in the box. But I am curious who boxed the popcorn as a snack in the box. Because I think then, again, I already said this. I don't care. I'm repeating myself. It's my video. I can say it as many times as I want. You can skip ahead. That's fine. I care because I think it's a missed opportunity if they are eating through pre-war snacks, that's a theme that was worth exploring, or at least like showing us a little bit of like the stockpiles depleting, because that's interesting. It's interesting. It's more interesting at least than just popcorn magically being there. What did I write next? I really like the bits with Norm trapped in the cryopod set. I think the set rocks. I think Norm is delightful. He's wonderful to watch as an actor, especially when you realize like he's really acting alone in those scenes. Like brain on a Roomba isn't really a person, an actor who's there next to him. So he's just kind of bouncing off himself and he's doing a marvelous job of it. Those bits are super compelling. His line where he's like, there are plenty of irrational choices is fun. It's fun. It's good. I really like those bits. Great lines. Back to Lucy. I know we're jumping around a lot, but the show jumps around a lot. And we're going to get to that in episode 5. I actually took notes of how long we stayed on each character, because by episode 5, it really started to feel like whiplash with how fast we were going back and forth between storylines. So when we get to episode 5, I will talk about the timestamps that I sort of wrote down. But for now, we're back to talking about Lucy. Lucy and the ghoul find this vault, and they walk into this vault. Oh, I actually have so many thoughts on this vault. Shoot. Okay. That's fine. This video is going to be long. Lucy says, why would Vault-Tec allow communists in their vaults? Something like that. And that kind of bugged me, because why is Lucy scared of communists? Like, even in her vault, getting snacks are just a request form and you get snacks. Like, that's so much more communist. I understand that she's in the Vault-Tec propaganda, the capitalist propaganda. I get it. I do. But it is frustrating to, again, not have that, like, explored. Exploring the new vault, though, it is pretty cool. Like, seeing her and the ghoul kind of walk in and try and piece together what happened. I love that in games. It's one of my favorite parts, so I love that they included a moment like that in the show. But then the logic of it kind of immediately fell apart. And again, I know I'm asking for too much. I know I am. I am asking for, like... Did you read any of Andy Weir's books, honestly? It's so hard sci-fi because he's thought through. I'm talking like The Martian. You might have seen the movie The Martian, even if you don't know what I'm talking about with these books. The Martian, Project Hail Mary. They're hard sci-fi. They're hard science sci-fi, which means that, like, the author has really thought in depth about how this would work, what is the science behind it, like all that stuff that's just so compelling to me. And so I know I'm asking too much in just like the show version of a video game with, like, well, what was the point of that experiment in that vault? But what was the point of that experiment in that vault? Because it seemed like it was two-part. It was mind washing, but also mind control, where they're feeding people propaganda, but they also have a mind control chip on them. And frankly, that's just bad. That's bad psychological experiment design. That's bad experiment design. You're not isolating a variable if you're trying mind control, but also mind washing. You know what I mean? Like, if you have the little boxes that are forcing people to stay still and watch these videos, why do you also need the mind control videos? Do you know what I mean? It's little, but part of the joy of the games is that you get to piece together who was the overseer and what happened here. And we get none of that. We just get like oh yeah, they were, I don't know, brainwashing people to be communists. Don't think too hard about it. Like, you're not supposed to think too hard about it. I think that's where I end up with a lot of frustration in the show. You're not supposed to think too hard about the snacks in the vault. You're not supposed to think too hard about the other vault experiments. You're not supposed to think too hard about the storylines from season 1 that we didn't follow up on. Like, how did Moldaver survive 200 years without aging? You're not supposed to think too hard about it. Just enjoy the ride. I think I think if I thought less hard about things, I would have a better time, just sort of in general. But you know what? I want something to pick at, and this show is what I'm picking at right now. So the next line I have here is, why is Hank a psychopath? He's just like a middle manager guy whose wife left him. And then I wrote, maybe I answered my own question. Because he's just like a middle manager guy whose wife left him for the service. And he's like psychopathic levels of evil. And I don't know why. But again, maybe I'm just not supposed to think that hard about it. I don't know. He just seems so psychopath evil. You know what I mean? There is, I think, a big jump between just general middle manager evil and like evil. And maybe that is the point. Like, maybe this is where I'm overthinking things and my media literacy is slipping a little bit. Because maybe it is just supposed to be like, they're satirizing capitalism. That's it. If that's what they wanted to do, though, I wish that they had taken more shots upwards at billionaires, at the rising tide of fascism in this country, at billionaires, I'm going to say again. And they didn't. I think they played it very safe with these comic book level villains. And so, yeah, it is to satirize companies like Vault-Tec. It is to satirize capitalism. I get it. But if you're going to make a critique, punch up, you know? And then the last note I have for episode 1 is, where is the Enclave? We did them in the first season. Like, we had, the doctor from the first season. I don't know. I don't know where they are. I've been recording for 40 minutes and we've talked about episode 1. So I'm going to stop the recording and just make sure that I don't know, that you can hear me, that my microphone's hooked up correctly. It's too late for me to find out that this isn't working. And then we're just going to keep going because we are. Everything looked good, so we're just going to keep going. I'm going to have to speed this up a little bit, maybe not ramble quite so much. I say that, but then I can always just break this into multiple videos if it ends up being, insufferably long. Episode 2 kicks off with pre-bombing of Shady Sands, and I love it. Oh my God, it's my favorite thing. Seeing it before the bombing is my favorite thing. This is what I want. People learning to rebuild, people learning to survive, people repairing, people getting clean water. I mean, those are a lot of the quests that we get in the games of like, purify this water source or like help us out, help these people out. And it's massively satisfying to me, both just on a storytelling level and a personal level. I love this. This is what I want in a show. You know what I mean? And I wish that the show had been more like this, but I understand that's not like a general thing of good show. That's just like what I would have preferred. And that's fine. That's totally fine. But I love it. And then I wrote in all caps, patrolling the Mojave almost makes you wish for a nuclear winter, which was like it was fun to hear that. It's an Easter egg. Again, it's just like, it's an Easter egg that's thrown in there. People got mad at me when I said this on TikTok. I think reasonably so, even though I'm including myself in it. But I sometimes feel like when they just flash something on the screen like that, like they just say the line and everybody goes crazy for it, it kind of has the same energy of like somebody jangling keys in front of a baby. And we're all like, oh my God, he said the line. And I mean, it worked on me. Like I wrote in all caps, patrolling the Mojave almost makes you wish for a nuclear winter. Like it worked on me. So I'm not above it. But it also, it kind of feels like the low-hanging fruit of like, okay, you also have to give me like some interesting writing around some of these things. You can't just pack a show full of Easter eggs and expect me to like it just because you said all the things. I also want like a compelling storyline. But I love the Shady Sand scenes. The way they carted the bomb in, Max's dad rocks as a character. Best character, top tier character is Max's dad. Him trying to not debug, what's the word? Disarm. Him trying to disarm the bomb and the little failsafe activated. That's what I was talking about earlier with I wish there had been a sound effect for like the charisma check failed, because the sound effect we get for the failsafe activated, so good, so game-like, so satisfying, such a fun way of bringing the game feel of the games into the world in a way that fits in the world that they've built and is fun for us and just devastating to see. I really loved that bit. And then I kept writing about Max's dad. I love Max's dad. Like, it can be tough out there, but as long as we leave it a little better than we found it, like, there is my Minuteman mentality. Like, oh, that's what I wanted. That is so good. And then the show shoots it down immediately because he dies and they all blow up. And I want to sit with that for a sec, because it feels like every time they tease a little bit of like, hey, there's good people out there. Hey, it's possible to purify the water. Hey, those people die. It's what I was saying earlier with, I think the show has a different thesis, which is the wasteland will beat you down. Hope is naive, and the wasteland will show you how wrong you were to hope and how it will beat you down. Because we have one of the best and smartest characters is Max's dad in these just few scenes. This wonderful, smart, wonderful guy. And he's given some of the best lines we've seen so far. Like, truly, this was my favorite part of the entire show. As long as we leave things a little better than we found them. Like, that's all we can do. And then he dies. And yeah, Max survives, but we just sort of skip ahead to, I don't know how many years later it was. I should have written that down. But we skip ahead to how many years later it is, and he's, still struggling to figure out how to do good in life? Like, it feels like a bummer. It feels like rebuilding anything in the wasteland is this Sisyphean task that isn't worth trying to do. And every time you have a character try and make the argument of, like, maybe it is worth trying to do, they get blown up by a nuclear bomb. I've been yelling so long, my lips are getting dry. Yeah. Moving on, we have the Brotherhood uncover AR-51. I'm assuming that's Area 51. That's hilarious. That's so fun. True. This was just me being fun, not thinking too hard about it. See, there are some times that I don't have to think too hard about things and I can just have fun. But that was just like a fun, we got to see all the things in Area 51. We got to see like the icebox and the alien. Like that, those were fun things. I did get a kick out of that. And then I think we're back to Lucy and the Ghoul with Affordable Owls Discount Hospital. That's hilarious. I love that. Like whoever put that in and was like, this is what we're going to put on the sign for this location. I loved it. I really got a kick out of that. And then I wrote like the show, we switch from so many things, right? Because we switch from Max's backstory to Max present day in the Brotherhood. We switch to Lucy and the Ghoul. The show is trying to tell so many different stories and so many different timelines all at once. And at this point, it's already starting to get a little obvious that the speed that we're switching between all of them, it's like the show doesn't trust you to keep paying attention unless they're flashing something new on screen every 3 seconds. And it's frustrating. It's like, I promise I'll keep watching even if we talk about the same thing for more than 10 minutes, you know? Anyway, we get to the mysterious woman who's inside of this hospital, and I write down, why didn't her yelling help? Why wasn't that enough to trigger the rad scorpions? But whatever. A lot of things in this rating feel kind of Deus Ex Machina. Like the plot works because it has to, not because it's set up well written to work. There are so many moments like this where I'm like, well, why wouldn't that have triggered the rad scorpions? Like if she's yelling loud enough that we can hear her from the street, that would have triggered them, right? And so then the whole scene, I'm thinking like, oh, but this must be a trap because then she must have released the rad scorpions. Otherwise, that doesn't make sense. And I was just overthinking it. It works because the plot works because it has to. They didn't hear her because then it would have ruined that part of the plot. That's it. Don't overthink it. The combat with the rad scorpions, though, it is really cool. The close combat of like the rad scorpion on top of them, like you don't really get to see that from the games, because in the games, you know, your camera view of your character is like standing up and then the rad scorpion is beneath you and you can kind of melee over it. Actually getting to explore like the physicality, the hand-to-hand of a rad scorpion on top of a character is really fun. And I think that's things that the show can do well and bring to life that we couldn't have seen in the game. So that was pretty cool. Oh, you know what? I have in my notes next, Norm, unfreezes all of the managers. Norm unfreezes all of the managers, and this is a recurring theme. I said earlier that group panic wasn't a theme that we revisited, but we do here. The managers are immediately in like group panic mode when they're unfrozen, and it takes a second for Norm to like get their attention back. So I guess we do touch on that theme twice. Again, I have here, I'm more interested in the smaller stories. I'm so much more invested in how do we get clean water in Shady Sands stories, and I'm not interested in who started the war and who is the heart of Vault-Tec. I understand people have different opinions on what they want to see out of a show. For me, personally, in the games, I am so much more interested in the smaller stories, in the day-to-day of these people. I don't care. I don't care who the heart of Vault-Tec is. I don't care who made the call. It happened. The bombs dropped. Show me how people are rebuilding today. I like that the little mice that Hank is testing have a little terminal. So much blood in that scene. I talked to some other people who did get farther in the show, and they said that part of the show is when they stopped watching, just because so much blood. Sure. But I like that the mice had a little terminal. That was cool. Again, whoever did like set design and prop design, I love you. You deserve a big old smooch on the mouth. I think Max really does want to make the world better. He thinks he can help, and he thinks the Brotherhood can genuinely stop history from repeating itself. I'm going to touch on this more as we go. Max becomes my favorite character. I do understand his motivation, and I think that makes him more intriguing to me. I see why he thinks this is the best option, even if I disagree. The license plate in the head Brotherhood guy is a cool character design. It is wonderful, wonderful choices by, I guess that would be like a hair and makeup or costumes department. Just gorgeous. But then I have here this like getting all the Brotherhood factions together. That is like a huge end game anniversary level, like massive escalation climax of a bunch of smaller quests it's weird to me that we just throw it in here in episode 2 of like, yeah, all the Brotherhood factions are meeting. Like, that's like a season ender climax to me of like seriousness in the Brotherhood. But instead, they're sprinkling out all these like little things of like, and then Norm does this, and then the Brotherhood get all the factions together. Like, that to me is a crazy thing to just sort of casually toss in there. It feels like we're trying to put too much into the show. Somebody on TikTok said it really well. I would have rather had like 5 10 out of 10 storylines than like 10 5 out of 10 storylines. You know what I mean? Flashback to Norm. Is Norm learning that the secret to survival really is just good management? Compelling. I liked the Norm storylines. And then we're flashing back to Hank. I don't understand the mind control chips. I don't. Like, they seem to work, but we keep turning them up and exploding people. I don't know. We're going to get more information on that, though. Do you think... Okay, I have in my notes. Do you think you need to have played the games? Because, like, the Legion reveal doesn't need the gameplay to get that same reveal. And if it does, is it worth going back to play a... How old is New Vegas? A 15-year-old game just to get the same reveal? Because I personally think it is. I'm doing my first Fallout New Vegas playthrough ever right now. It's a delight. And playing that did make me appreciate that part of the show more when like the reveal happens and I'm like, oh, it's the Legion, you know, that was very cool. But I'm still curious who this show was for. Is it for people who've played the games and knew that reveal? Does that reveal hit the same way if you haven't played the games at all? I would love to hear. If you did not play the games at all, how did you feel about Caesar's Legion in the show? Did it hit with the same sort of gravitas that you would imagine it did from the games by the way that everybody talks about it and says that reveal was cool? Or did it not hit you as hard? I'm curious. Let me know. Yeah, I continue to enjoy Norm's storyline a lot more than I thought I would, but I'm not sure like where it's going or what we're implying here. The pre-war characters, the management, you know, who's waking up that Norm woke up from the vault, they're delightful. I think it's really funny when they all kind of leave the vault. You get this really cool moment where they're looking around and they're like, oh man, the mole's gone. Like it's such a good line that still carries some storytelling with it of like, wow, for all these people, yesterday the mole was there. For all these people, the world is now ruined. But for Norm, it's his first time going outside. For Norm, this is the beautiful big world that he's never seen before. And it's such a fun contrast to explore. For him, this is the most amazing day of his life. He is outside for the first time. And for everybody else that he's with, that pile of rubble was a mall last week. That's so cool. Norm thinks it's beautiful. There is no waiting for a better day because all there is now. I know, you know, the Vault Tech keeps talking about like, well, Reclamation Day is when they're all going to wake up and it's all going to be worth it. There's no waiting for anything. This is it. This is it. You know, you can't just freeze yourself and wait for something else to happen. This is it. Norm is outside for the first time and it is beautiful. Timestamp 51, I wrote, we watched Max's face as he killed a man, but not the man get killed. And that was a fascinating choice. I really got to give props to the director on that one. That was a really, really good choice to watch Max kill somebody with his hands and watch him reckon with that more than the gore. Because the show loves gore, right? And so to have an intentional choice where we're not watching the gore, we are watching its effects on Max. I love Max. That character, that actor is so good at his whole face. It's so sweet, but he's figuring things out, but he's wrong, but he's conflicted. I love it. I love Max. At this point, I was sort of asking myself, I wasn't enjoying it. And I was asking myself like, okay, what shows do I like? You know, like, is it just that I don't like shows that are like mystery political thrillers? Because maybe it's just a personal taste. So what do I like? I loved Russian Doll. I love Severance. So I do like shows that are like figuring out mysteries. I love The Orville. I love shows that have themes that resonate. Does this show have themes and morals and life and mysteries that like make me feel good? Because isn't this figuring out mysteries? And I sat and I reflected on that for a while. And then I wrote, not really. Because I wanted to know like what happened to Thaddeus, but we're ignoring that in favor of new dynamics in the Brotherhood. So it's just, it wasn't hitting in the same way. And part of that was a personal preference on the themes. But I do think that the show was struggling, even at this point, we're 2 episodes in, to investigate anything in depth in a way that felt compelling. That was episode 2. Episode 3, we get Thaddeus, we get the kids in the bottle cap. I guess it's just a soda factory, but they're, bottle cap production. Delightful. So funny. So fun. That's exactly what I want and what I say I want when I'm like, let's explore the limits of the world. We live in this world now where currency is bottle caps. So yeah, if you can get to an old bottling plant, you can, make counterfeit money. Delightful. I really enjoyed that. I have a quote written down, the dimness of the sword. I think that was about Max. I think they're criticizing him. At this point, I started to ask myself, like, what makes a good protagonist in writing? Because I've seen other people who are much better at writing and media analysis than I talk about this. And the things I wrote down are like, protagonists and characters exist on different scales of things. They can be proactive, they can be relatable, and they can be capable. And if you have characters that are high on some of those things, they can be really compelling and good characters, even if they're low on other things. So you might have a character that's not relatable at all, but is super capable, and that makes them really compelling to watch. Or the other way around. Maybe a character is super relatable, but not capable at all. And I started asking myself this in episode 3, and I considered it for Max, and I considered it for the Ghoul. For Max, is he proactive? No. Things just happen to him through his whole life, through this whole show. Things just happen to Max. He's not really making any choices. Is he relatable? I mean, yes, in that he wants to do good, but no, in that his ideas are really naive. And I think sometimes when he does things, it's easy for the audience to be like, oh, that was kind of dumb. Like, he doesn't know anything. He's not exactly the most relatable. And is he capable? No. He's ineffective and he's easily manipulated. And I'm saying that about my favorite character in the show. Like, I adore Max. I think he's wonderful. And yet, when I look at him in the context of the plot, he's not doing any driving and he's not relatable enough to be compelling. Even though I do think he is the most relatable character that we run into, because he is trying to do good, and he does have some experience in the Wasteland, and he's got some experience from Shady Sands. Like, he's a fascinating character, but he's not. They made him look so dumb here, and I'm sure you can disagree with me there and say a lot of it just went over my head, which sure. Having Caesar's Legion split in half is funny. I'll give him that. That's really funny. But I think you get one. You can either make them funny or you can make them scary. And if the route you choose is to have Caesar's Legion has split in half and they're fighting over the main guy and killing each other for this, and I know I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but if you choose to make them funny, they can't also then be scary. And I think the show chose funny, and then I think the scary bits didn't land as well. We'll get to those. Back to Lucy and the Ghoul. Why haven't they let truly any trust between them grow? Like, we're on episode 3 of season 2 and there's nothing. They do not like each other or trust each other at all. There's a bunch of gore, but not the super cool healing stim packs. I miss stim packs. There are so many plot holes in this show. Victor, we get Victor on screen. I love Victor. We get Victor on screen and he doesn't remember his own name, but he knows the Ghoul's entire history with Cold Fusion. Is he booting up more? And then I thought to myself, like, oh, he must be booting up, that he's like, oh, I don't know my own name. And then he's online for a bit more and then he processes it. And then I realized, again, I was overthinking something I just wasn't supposed to think too hard about. The dialogue for Victor at the beginning is that he doesn't remember anything. But then, of course, he does, because the plot works, because it has to. It feels... I mentioned cosplay in the beginning, and that's how I'm sort of appreciating this show. It feels like a bunch of people are cosplaying, and they have one guy who's maybe... It feels like a bunch of people are cosplaying, and somebody wrote a script for them to act out, and they're all just going along with it, but it's not, like, as well thought out as it could have been. It's just, like, they have really cool costumes, and they know some themes, and that's fun. It's fun. But that's how it feels. It feels like people have dressed up and, like, it's cool. If I were seeing these costumes or these themes at a convention, I would go absolutely ape for them. I would lose my mind for them. But this is a show from a billion-dollar company who had so many writers on it, and I'm sure so much money went into this, and it's, the top 10 on Prime right now. And that's the writing level that we're getting out of this. It was frustrating. It felt like there could have been more care in it. And again, it just felt like they didn't trust the audience. I know, I'm just repeating myself now. I'm not making new points. I already said those things. I'll move on. Anyway, we get to pre-war Coop. We get to the army toast about how he was a good guy. And I wrote here in all caps, show me, don't tell me. I wrote, the next thing I wrote, that's why I'm laughing, is I wrote, Jesus, he sucks. Because I wish they could have shown us that more effectively instead of just having a speech about, and Coop's a really good guy, I wasn't even sure what the point of that speech was. Sometimes we do bad things, but it's okay if you pick the side that protects the people you love. Maybe. If that's the theme they want to build on, though, they really needed to flesh that out a little more. I understand they're trying to draw it back to like what Barb is doing with Vault-Tec, but they've said this thesis out loud, but just because they've said it out loud doesn't mean that they've proved it, I don't know if it's okay to do bad things if you are just protecting people you love. I don't think so. I don't know if it's okay to do things that hurt people to protect other people. I don't know. I mean, that's the entire study of the field of ethics. And I think this show, it said a lot of things, but it didn't prove anything. Max and the other Brotherhood guy finding Thaddeus and the kids in the bottling plant, it's good. It's compelling. It's fun. You see how they're gonna go in different directions here because the Brotherhood has this very black and white mentality about abominations, and Max, wasn't born into the Brotherhood. He's got 10 years of being raised by very caring and compassionate parents, and so he's got a little more ability to question the things that are happening. It's good. It's interesting. And then you have this line where Thaddeus is just like, well, I'm the floor manager here, so it sounds like we both have a lot going on. That just completely deflates the whole scene. It sounds like a joke that people would make in cosplay that then I would laugh really hard at. It's not actually funny in the context of like taking it seriously that Max just started a civil war. And I understand the show is trying to be funny. Like it's comedic. I get it. It's campy. I know the games are campy. I love the writing in the games. But if the show doesn't let us sit with any seriousness at any point, we won't feel the depth of the impact that these things have. Coming into episode 4, watching the recap, I wrote the water chip was mentioned in the recap. Jesus Christ, I forgot about that. Too many plot lines and each a main quest. It is. A water chip being broken in a vault, that is a main quest level event that they're just like throwing in, and I completely forgot about it because there's just too much going on, and everything that's going on is main quest level severity. It's wild that the first Deathclaw reveal was in a pre-war flashback. I love the Sunset Sarsaparilla bottling plant location. I love that Thaddeus is back. Okay, here at this point, we see some of the NCR. We see just 2 holdouts, and they tell us that they're all that's left. That was frustrating to me. Okay, a little context. When this episode aired, I made a TikTok being like, it's really frustrating to me that we're seeing so much of what was built up get torn down. Shady Sands was built up in the games, and then the show came along and was like, no, actually, we've bombed that. The NCR was built up in the games, and I understand that there's nuances in the DLCs that maybe it wasn't, maybe it was Perilous, but whatever. The show kind of takes that down. The Kings in the games are this really fun gang of very fleshed out, a core part of Freeside, and then in the show, they're just ghouls. The show does a lot of tearing things down to show how things have rotted, and it doesn't do nearly as much building things up. And I made a TikTok about that, and people were combative in my comment section, to say the least. I got a lot of people who accused me of having never played the games in my whole life, because that's not what happens. I got some people pointing out, well, things get torn down in the games too, like the Institute. Sure, you can blow up the Institute in Fallout 4. You absolutely can. The Institute also gets built up in Fallout 4. You can introduce new things. You can build them up and you can tear them down. But it feels like when you're tearing down things that were established already in canon, like blowing up the existing Shady Sands, it feels like you've gone into somebody else's sandbox and knocked over their sandcastle. And that's so different than building up your own thing first and then tearing it down. And that's how I felt about the NCR here. It was hard after already seeing so much of how things have fallen apart in the Wasteland to also see the NCR be two people. That was a bummer. And I understand, again, because people disagreed with me so vocally and strongly and said a lot of really not nice things to me on TikTok. I know that not everybody agrees with me on that, and that's okay. And I'm assuming if you clicked on this video, you've watched the whole season, so spoilers for the last episode is the NCR isn't all gone. Which also kind of feels like a Deus Ex Machina plot device, because at this point in episode 4, they are telling us this is all that's left. It's just the two people, and they haven't heard from anybody else in the NCR in years and years and years. So it just kind of felt bad to see. Anyway, they help Lucy, and then Lucy walks away from them, and she makes a comment to the ghoul where she's like, all I saw in there was more matching jackets, to kind of show that she's becoming a little less naive, a little less brainwashed. You know, she is moving away from her vaulty mentality as she can sort of recognize a group that's like matching jackets. And I wrote, girl, what? The NCR are the first people who tried to help you. And this actually drove me insane. Lucy has been trying to help people in the whole Wasteland. She finally meets people who help her, who treat her, who save her life. And now is when she looks back and she's like, all I saw there was more conformism. Girl, the NCR helped you. They were the only people to help you. She tried to help that Caesar's Legion woman, which obviously was a mistake when she tries to do it. But every time she's tried to help people, she's been shot down for it. And she finally finds a group that genuinely, that helped her, that saved her life, asking nothing in return. And she dismisses them? That was so frustrating to me. I was so mad at this point. And honestly, the rest of my notes are in a lot of caps. There's a lot of caps. We go back to the vault. I wrote, Steph's just a psychopath. Most of these characters aren't interesting at all because they're just all psychopaths. I was mad at this point. We get the flash, like I said, of the Kings. The jacket rocks. Like, I am mad that the Kings are ghoulified, but the jacket rocks. The makeup on that ghoul King member, gorgeous. And then I wrote here in my notes too, this is exactly like the Rocky Horror Fox remake. It's only fun if I pretend it's all cosplay. And even then, it's like, let me play with those toys. I could tell a better story. Like, I truly kept imagining, like, if I was on this set and I had access to these characters to play with as like Barbies or something, I could make them tell a better story, which I probably couldn't. I'm not a writer, but it was just so frustrating to watch because you had all the bones of this great show. You had great sets, you had great actors, you had great set design, costume design, all these great things. And just the way they took it was not the way I would have took it. And they did so in a way that crammed too much in, that jumped around a lot, that did not commit to any themes it was trying to tell. And that was really frustrating. Max, I have a quote from Max here, is when he says, I don't have a plan. I wrote, oh, my sweet Max, my sweet baby. He's got no plan. Things are just happening to him. And then, okay, we're back to the vault. Chet finding Steph's ID, as Woody is reporting, is such bad writing. Truly, this really pissed me off. Really? She's keeping her Canada ID and she's just keeping it in her sock drawer while she lives with a vaultie. She's just keeping her pre-war ID in a sock drawer and he just happens to find it in this moment. He's never found it before. Nobody has ever found anything of the manager's pre-war stuff before, but she just left it? Like, why would you even bring that with you? When she wakes up in her cryopod, she's got her pre-war wallet on her and she just brings it with her through her first marriage, through everything. She keeps it on her. Nobody's ever found it. And she's just leaving it out and about. Like, I almost wondered if she had done that on purpose and we were going to get something where she was like, yeah, I wanted you to find that. What are you going to do? Because it was so unbelievable to me that after so many years of this vault experiment, of Steph being woken up from cryosleep, that she would just be keeping her pre-war Canada license in her sock drawer. That is insane to me. Like, truly, I think that was the worst writing of the show. That really bugged me. And then we get back to the strip, and at this point I'm mad. I can tell in my notes that I'm mad. I wrote in all caps, no, I refuse to believe the strip is abandoned. Shut up. It should be vibrant. Why is this show determined to strip away everything? Where is humanity? I was so upset at that part, because in the games, when you find New Vegas, it's not only that the characters there are so interesting, you have characters who are visiting that tell you more about the entire wasteland. You have Brahmin ranchers, you have tourists, you have, like, it tells you so much about the world. And the show, it seemed determined to do, honestly, the weak part of Fallout 4 compared to like New Vegas is that it seems like Bethesda wants to do a post-apocalypse instead of a post-post-apocalypse. Games like New Vegas are set in the post-post-apocalypse. You know, things have been built back up. We have trade routes. We have the Crimson Caravan Company. We have new crops. We have new produce. We have new things that exist in the world that people have built around. Like, we've got all this wonderful life in the world. And then we get to the show and it's like the bomb's just dropped. And sometimes I feel that way about Fallout 4 too, when you come to a new location and people are still living in these like shacks that nobody has even cleaned up or nailed a board over. And it's like, has nobody cleaned up in 200 years? Nobody's touched this. It's the difference in the post-apocalypse versus the post-post-apocalypse. And seeing the strip empty, it broke my heart. It broke my heart. The next note that I have here is dumb. It's the way the Gamora sign is like partially lit up. It says GMO, and I just wrote LMAO, an anti-GMO message in the Gamora sign. That's dumb. I should cut that out. I shouldn't post this video at all. Why did you do this to my beloved Vegas? End of episode 4. I haven't talked this long in a long time. Even when I do my like weekly Fallout videos, I don't usually just like talk this loudly for this long. Ew, it feels bad. Should I post this? If you're watching this, I've posted it. Maybe that's a mistake. Episode 5. This is embarrassing, but this is what I wrote down and this is how I feel. I half thought that Lucy was going to be able to tame a Deathclaw or something. Like with the Deathclaw egg, or like, we know there are Deathclaw eggs from the Deathclaw omelet, you know, plot lines in the games. I kind of thought that she was going to get the egg or be able to tame them or like something, because she's been so kind and I kept waiting for that to pay off. I think a subversion of expectations would have been more interesting, but that's not what happened. And again, I'm overthinking it. I'm thinking too hard and maybe my media literacy is bad. Whatever. We get to Freeside. Freeside at least still has people. That's great. We flash back. Coop says that he can stop House without killing him. And again, this is where we're touching on that theme of, can mercy be the right choice? Are we again going to see that mercy is the wrong choice? It's the show over and over wants to show you how grueling humanity is. And that's a bummer. This is another embarrassing one for me. This video might just be me confessing how bad my media literacy is. So please, God, please be kind to me in the comments. Just have a little grain of salt for me. I know that I'm a little bit stupid. I can't tell the Mustache Men apart in the show. When we first got House, I was like, that's House. And then we saw that other guy with the mustache. And I was like, well, I'm confused because I thought that was House. And then when we get this reveal that actually not the first Mustache Man, but the other Mustache Man was House, I was like, I thought these were the same guy the whole time. Like, that was kind of lost on me. I know what a hypocrite I am. Because earlier in this video, I was saying the show doesn't trust me to pay attention. The show doesn't trust me to not be on my phone. But I was paying attention and I was taking notes and I still got confused. So maybe it's a no-win situation where the show really can't make things too complicated and it can't make them too simple, because I guess I'm going to complain either way. I'm sorry. I just really, I got confused by the Mustache Men. My bad. This is where I wrote, Jesus Christ, I have whiplash from switching scenes and storylines and timelines. So after I get through my notes from this episode, we are going to go through timestamp by timestamp what happens in this episode specifically, because that's where I made this note. We'll talk about that once I get through my notes. We have lovely ladies here. I think it's Barv and Ma June. I wrote them down. I love them. Such an interesting couple, such interesting designs. I really enjoyed them. That was the first time that I was like, oh, these new characters are wonderfully compelling and fascinating and have really strong personalities. And I love them. I wrote them out. Like, what an interesting couple. Delightful. And then we're back at Lucy. I wrote, I'm unimpressed by Lucy's theft. At this point, she is, addicted to drugs. I am not sure if I'm supposed to see her stealing as corruption or desperation or what, because her kindness, it was always kind of just like surface level, because none of the vault dwellers are seasoned enough to understand how the real world is. So it's not like she's truly a good person, and I think we know that. And so I'm not sure if the theft is supposed to be like, ooh, she's super corrupt. She's finally giving more in. The wasteland has weighed her down. Because I don't think that she was ever a super strong moral character, because she had never been challenged before. And also she's tripping out, pretty heavily in a way that I think undercuts what this story beat should be. Yeah, I wrote the I don't know who I am line. It doesn't hit because, of course, she doesn't know who she is. She's desperate for a Dictyl. She's diminished capacity because she's actively in severe withdrawal. And this isn't the first time she's killed somebody. She already killed all those ghouls. Like, I think this is supposed to be a big story beat that just doesn't hit. It doesn't work. It doesn't pay off. It's a bummer. We get to House's room set. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. But then House starts talking, and I wrote, oh, ew, I don't like how quickly they made him crazy and sound like a loser, because he puts his little hat on to immediately make him look like a conspiracy theorist, and he starts spouting about how the world is ending, and it like gave me the ick, and that's such a bummer, because House is such a cool, smart, capable character, and they didn't make him seem cool or smart or capable. They made him seem like kind of a weirdo. I like Norm. I like the girl he's talking to. This is when I started taking notes about FEV. But then the other guy, the management guy, he found out that he was lied to, and he immediately tried to murder Norm. Like, this guy had not been beaten down by the wasteland at all. This is literally just like some guy. Like, think of a coworker that you have. Is finding out that you got lied to grounds to jump to murder in like 2 seconds? This show has no faith. No faith in humanity whatsoever. Lucy gets her a Dictyl or whatever. That's so much vomit. I wrote, I hate that. I hated it so much. Not that I would change it, because I understand the nature of the show is this gory masterpiece, but that was so much vomit. The ghoul is given the deal to like bring Lucy home. That's a no-brainer. And he hadn't made any character growth. Like, truly, the ghoul had no character growth up until that point. So I was kind of frustrated by like, yeah, that's a good deal. I didn't think for a second he wasn't going to take that deal. He doesn't trust Lucy. Lucy doesn't trust him. He's just got to get her home. No brainer, There was no tension in that scene because they hadn't built up anything that they would have needed to build up for me to see it as a conflict. And then Lucy punches the ghoul out the window, and I wrote, what the girl, I thought we were friends. Like, he could have been bluffing. You know what I mean? You guys have been working together. You could have trusted that maybe he had a different plan. Like, if he's your escort, maybe escape. Like, to punch him out of the window, it just made no sense. You could have tried again. She was already feeling so conflicted about her first murder, and instead of reflecting that at all, she just does it again. Stupid writing, stupid character. This is what I wrote. Stupid writing, stupid character. Also doomed his family as far as she knows. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Such a bummer. This could have been a show about fathers. We have Coop and Janie. We have Lucy and Hank. This could have been a show about the father-daughter dynamic, and it's not. It fails to be that. It fails to explore that in any meaningful way, and it's another disappointment. I think so much of what I didn't like about the show is I kept wanting things from it, and it kept missing those chances, and I just kept being bummed. Those are all the notes I have about episode 5. So I want to pull up now. I took notes. I took notes with timestamps about when everything changed in this episode, because it felt like it changed so quickly. So the first few minutes of this show are recap. And then at 2 minutes, 51 seconds, that's when we start with Lucy and the ghoul. Between 2 minutes and 51 seconds and 4 minutes and 22 seconds of this is episode 5, I counted how many times the scene cut to a new viewpoint. So like if we were looking at Lucy and then we're looking at the ghoul, that's a cut. In that time, so that's 1 minute and 30 seconds, the first 1 minute and a half of this show, 91 seconds. In that time, there are 41 cuts. That is an average of one scene every 2.5 seconds. Literally 1, 2, 1, 2. Like they are flipping around. And that's only for the first minute and 30 seconds. And then we get to the title card. Like that is Coco Melon level of just switching. Like the show does not trust you to pay attention for more than 2 seconds. And I'm being so literal when I say this because it switches every 2 seconds to a new cut, a new scene, a new view. And that's only in the first minute and a half. Because then we get the title card. And then we do get more of Lucy and the ghoul. And then they split up and we just have the ghoul. So I wasn't sure if I was going to count that as a switch or not. Hey, editing Reagan here, subbing back in. I think I've changed my mind about if I count this as a switch or not. And also, when I was originally recording this, I said the wrong section name for a timestamp. So just to keep things clear, I'm going to take over from here. So we do have the title card at 4 minutes and 22 seconds. And then we get some more of Lucy and the ghoul after that at 4 minutes and 26 seconds. At 7 minutes and 10 seconds, the ghoul does split off. But I do think that is the start of a new story beat because the next thing that happens at 9 minutes and 17 seconds is we get some pre-war flashbacks. So if we count the ghoul alone in the bar and the pre-war flashback as one story beat, that is actually 9 minutes and 30 seconds. If we don't count that, if we count all the post-war scenes of Lucy and the ghoul and then the ghoul as a single story beat, then that first bit of story beat is 6 minutes and 26 seconds. Continuing on, at 16 minutes and 45 seconds, we get a few minutes of just the snake oil salesman, and then he joins up with Hank. So I think we can be generous and count that as one story beat. Not even generous because I do think that is the same story beat, but combining that together of the snake oil salesman and the bits with Hank, that's only 4 minutes and 30 seconds. At 21 minutes and 17 seconds, we switch to Norm, and we're sticking with Norm for 4 minutes and 11 seconds. Then at 25:28, we have just Lucy, and we get Lucy for 3 minutes and 54 seconds. Then we switch at 29:22 to the ghoul, and that's interspersed with pre-war scenes of the ghoul with House. So we're going to count that as one story beat, which lasts for 8 minutes and 2 seconds. At 37:24, we switch to Norm. We get Norm for 5 minutes and 18 seconds. And then at 42:42, we're back to Lucy and the ghoul for 5 minutes and 34 seconds. And then at 48:16, we switched back to Coop, which flashes a lot between pre-war and post-war scenes for 3 minutes and 24 seconds. And that's kind of being generous because I know at the end too, it switches back to Lucy and her dad for a second. But then at 51:40, we get the credits. That's wild. That's no story beat lasts for more than 10 minutes. In about an hour-long episode, we're switching main characters every 4 to 8 minutes. That's crazy. And within those beats, even when we're staying on the same character, the cuts between, I should have done more counting of how many cuts there were in scenes. I only did the first one, and that's the Deathclaw fight scene, so I understand it has some more than the others because they're trying to add the drama of the fight. It hurt my brain to count that many that I was like, I'm not doing it again. I'm not doing it for more. That they tried to fit so much in this show. And writing it down and seeing it written out, we got 3.9 minutes of ghoul and pre-war House before switching back to Norm, before switching back to Lucy, before switching back to Coop. That's crazy. That's exhausting. No wonder I felt overwhelmed and like they weren't actually digging into any of these plot points. That's so much. That was episode 5. Let's keep going. Episode 6, my notes are getting shorter, so maybe this will start to speed up. The Caesar's Legion guys unexpectedly being friendly is such a great reveal that the mind control works. And it's one of the few examples, that's mean. It's a good example of the show doing a show, not tell. They don't tell us, Hank, fix the mind control. They show us these Caesar's Legion guys are coming around the corner and they're not violent. It's such a great show us how this thing worked and what's happened. We get to piece together that the mind control works and that's what's going on here. That's delightful. But then my next note is I don't really understand how it works still, because I don't understand how everybody's working in sync. It kind of reminded me of what I think Pluribus did more effectively in their early episodes. I don't think that's like a late show spoiler. But when everybody who's infected by the same hive mind starts working in sync, like handing things to each other, when the Fallout show does it with the mind control devices that they're all working together, it sort of made me frustrated that I realized I didn't understand if it was mind control or hive mind or a lobotomy. Like, I was frustrated that I didn't have enough detail about how it worked. I wasn't sure what it was like satirizing either. And I said this earlier, I don't think it's effective satire of the workplace in like Severance. Severance is a great show. It's a super effective critique of the workplace. The Fallout show seems to be trying to satirize positivity. Like, Lucy was kind and optimistic, and then that got really beat out of her, and now she sees how horrible a world full of toxic positivity workers are. But I don't buy that. Like, it doesn't seem to be effectively arguing that either. It doesn't really seem to be effectively arguing anything. And again, I think you could say that I'm taking this all too seriously, and for sure. But you know what? If you're this far in this video, you're probably taking it this seriously too. So, checkmate. Just kidding. I love that you're watching. Hank realizes that Lucy isn't going to kill him. His line, I thought the wasteland might have changed you. It's frustrating because she looks weak. Again, it's not, I need water. It's not a charisma check that she has successfully passed. He sees her as weak. He realizes that he can still manipulate her. And that is so frustrating that after this many episodes, Lucy and her optimism, her kindness, her mercy is still shown as a weakness. It is still shown as the wrong choice. It is still shown as a manipulatable fault in her that other people can continue to take advantage of and will continue to take advantage of because the wasteland is such a completely bad place. And I don't like that. I don't buy that. And I'm bummed to see it confirmed again that other characters see her as so weak and that they can take advantage of her. And that's exactly what Hank is about to do. Max gets his hands on cold fusion. He states he wants to give it to a good person. And I have in my notes here, could he give it to Lucy? Could this show redeem itself? Because I would totally change my mind if we were building up to Max and Lucy rebuild the Commonwealth together. If Lucy gets her hands, if she keeps her good person nature through this whole thing and she gets her hands on cold fusion and she can genuinely use it the way that Moldaver started to, of restoring power and helping people out, that would redeem me. But I keep being wrong about what's going to happen because it's so clear to me that the writers think so differently than I do. Uh-oh. Am I stuck? I have my video kind of mirrored and things are getting really laggy. So I'm going to pause and see that. I think I'm good. I think I can keep going. I've never recorded this much and I'm recording on my phone. My poor phone. Whatever. We're just going to keep going. Don't worry about it. I can't believe anybody's watching this video still at this point. So we're just going to keep going. The writers think so differently than I do. I want different things than the writers are giving me. We just think differently. And unfortunately for me, that means I keep being wrong. I keep thinking something's about to happen. I keep thinking Lucy's charisma is going to pay off or she's going to subvert our expectations and be able to charm a Deathclaw in the way that the Deathclaw omelet lady was able to do in the games. I keep thinking they are setting us up for some kind of reveal where all of that is going to pay off. And I keep being wrong. The writers just think differently than I do. And that makes this particularly frustrating for me in a way that maybe when you watch the show, maybe you did think the same way as the writers. Maybe you were thinking that whole time of exactly what was going to happen and you were totally right. But no. Oh, I don't know who this quote is from. I just wrote this down. I would be a good person too if I grew up on a mountain of food. Yeah, that's kind of a really interesting thing to explore. The idea of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I talk about this all the time in my cozy Fallout playthroughs because I believe that if you meet people's basic needs, if you meet their Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you meet food and shelter and water, and you build up to letting them get to the level of self-actualization. Yeah, I do believe that people are better people when they are not fighting for basic survival needs. That's like, they say it as like a no-brainer. They say it as like I'd be a good person too. And they throw that line away without catching it and investigating it because I don't think it's a throwaway line. I think it's a really fascinating line, actually, that is I would love to explore, and I would love to explore more seriously, that Lucy is kind of that way. And even in a way, Max is sort of that way. His formative years, let's say the bombs dropped when he was 10, his formative years of that first 10 years of his life, he was safe and he was loved and he had his parents, and he has the ability, then the luxury of being able to think of other people, even ghouls, ghoul children, not as abominations, but as people. It is wealth to have enough food, to have not only the basic level of the hierarchy of needs of food and shelter, but the expanded level of your parents care about you. And that is such an interesting thing to explore that I wish we had spent a little more time on it than just throwing it away as like, yeah, of course you're a good person on a mountain of food. Let's talk about why you would be a good person if you grew up on a mountain of food. Let's talk about how we can make the Commonwealth a better place for everybody if everybody has access to food and safe water and a safe place to sleep. Like, this shouldn't be a throwaway line. We're back to the inbreeding plotline. I think the inbreeding plotline is stupid. And I said this earlier in the video. If this being gluttony and wasting snacks, if this was a risk, it was always a risk. And you're telling me nobody exceeded their snack budget in the first 200 years? I just don't buy it. Again, it's another example of the plot is what it is because it has to be that way, not because it actually makes the most sense or is what we have been writing to. There's no reason that this snack club is the first one to be like, oh no, people are eating too many snacks. That is such low-hanging fruit. It would have happened in the first 30 years. It would have happened in the first year, if we're being honest. So just adding it in as a plot point now, it feels like shoehorning something in that didn't earn its place and that just doesn't need to be there. It doesn't make any sense to me. But then they almost changed my mind with it because one of the characters is arguing that he deserves to put himself first. And he says, we're here, we're who we are because of our ancestors. We're here because our ancestors put themselves first. Like, that's why we're in the vaults. And that shook me. And for another second, I think maybe the show can redeem itself because what an interesting question. What an interesting theme. I did not see that twist coming. And it actually changes my mind on the inbreeding plotline that I just wrote is stupid. They're not stupid. They are entitled and they're written to be entitled. And that is the exploration of the question. Who deserved a spot in the vaults? Who put themselves there? Are you entitled to more resources? Are you entitled to things because of who your parents are? And I wish we followed up on that. I do, because we just kind of drop it there. Like, they just say this line and again, they kind of throw it away without investigating it. And what a bummer. What a bummer, because it starts to get interesting and then they drop it kind of immediately. And we go back to Barb. And I have here, this is another interesting new theme. Is Barb wrong to kill people to save her daughter? And that's the question they're asking. And I think it is a question worth asking. But I also think it is wrong to kill people to save your own family. And I think that this is one of the mindsets in politics. I'm gonna try and touch on very lightly American politics without delving in it too deeply because I'm simply not equipped to make a video on that with enough nuance that it deserves. As I have said before in this video, I'm kind of dumb. I think that there are some mindsets in politics where I'm like, okay, I see how we feel differently about those things. And one of those is, can you put your own family first? Is it okay to prioritize your own immediate family for whatever it is, for money, for entrance to college, for whatever, over the needs of other people in your country? Is it okay to be conservative about your tax dollars for the benefit of your own family at the expense of social security nets that would protect people outside your immediate family? And I personally, I do think it's wrong for Barb to be able to kill other people to save her daughter. But it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, I can at least understand the character's motivation to, as a mother, say, you know, I will stop at nothing to protect my own daughter. I at least think that's interesting. You know what I'm saying? I'm not defending Barb. I don't agree with Barb. I am team, let's build social safety nets and save everybody. And that was probably a horrible way of phrasing that. I might watch this all back and take that out or put a disclaimer over it because again, I am simply not practiced enough in talking about topics that aren't just video games to make any sort of sense, but I hope that made enough sense that we can just talk about on the scope of Barb. Is Barb wrong here? I think yes, but I do think the show is arguing for her in a way that's compelling. Am I going to cut that bit out? Maybe. I don't think anybody's going to watch this video, if I'm being honest. This has been so long of me just ranting. I'm so sorry. If you're still here, I love you so much. But go take a break. Go get some water. Get a snack. Do some stretches. Come back tomorrow. I don't care. I'll still be here. Episode 7. Okay, episode 7 really gripped me. I wrote there was so much punctuation in here. Are we opening with a pre-war flashback? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Wait, more of that, please. Why isn't this whole show like that? Question mark, exclamation point, question mark, question mark, question mark. And in Canada? Question mark, exclamation point. Give me more about how people coped and reacted. 5 exclamation points. Oh my God, I love this. And I love it. Seeing Steph's origin story in Canada, seeing her mom, seeing just how different people reacted to the bombs is so compelling to me and so fascinating. I would have loved an entire show just based on that, just based on other people's reactions to what was happening in the bombs and how do you survive in that situation, and really humanizing Steph. It was marvelous. It was so compelling. It was so exciting. I love that. And to have it be in Canada too, we don't often in Fallout games get any sense of what's happening outside of America or outside of the town that we're directly in. Like, the games are very siloed, and that's fine. That's great. But this, getting a taste of something else, I just got the littlest taste and I was immediately so hungry for more. I loved that. I loved that bit in that opener of the episode. Just so good. And then, oh my God, I wrote, this whole show could have been the management vault as a premise to explore their stories. Because I think I would have liked that more. If we just went through, we explore Hank McClain, we explore Steph, we explore, I forget what the other overseer's name is. But if we explored each of them, I think that would have been so good. And I wrote, but no, somehow we're back in the mind control, all optimism is toxic and naive storyline. And that's stupid. And it is so frustrating to come away from this Canada reveal, this Canada subplot that deserved so much more than just the few minutes it was on screen, and go back to this mind control thing. Lucy in these scenes is so frustrating and so poorly written. I mean, she just turned on the 2 Caesar guys, but now she's like, I need to stop you. Like, she's got no consistent growth. They're not making any sort of point here. Like, she doesn't seem to know what she's doing. The writers don't seem to know what they're doing. They are just throwing stuff at the wall. And again, if this was like my friends doing improv at a convention, I would love it. I would eat it up. But it's not. It's a show with a massive budget behind it, and they have time to think through these plot holes and what they were trying to say and what they were trying to criticize, and if they were trying to satirize something big and punching up at it. And they fell short of all of that. Here, we are coming back to talking about the Legion. There's this line, and again, I wrote it out of context. I really should have taken better notes. You know the Legion is still out there, and they're going to hurt a lot of people. We have not established that. You kneecapped the Legion by giving them a stupid conflict, which I stand by, that I thought was funny, but you have kneecapped them by making them funny. You have split the Legion in half, and they are now infighting. That makes them a weak group. To just say, well, they're still out there and there's a battle coming. No, there's not. No, there is not. There is a group that is splintered within itself and is killing each other. They're not coming after you. You get scary or you get funny and weak, and they picked funny and weak. They did not earn the right to then be like, well, the Legion is coming and the Legion is scary. I was talking about the show with somebody at a game dev meetup, and he said what really bothered him about the Legion parts is there's a lack of a sense of scale. You know, like, even if they had just CGI'd it, there's no moment where we like zoom out and see the full scope and scale of Caesar's Legion and all the people they've killed. We don't get that. Like, he had a point, and it was really fascinating to hear him talk about it because he hadn't played New Vegas. And so from his point, he was like, I don't understand why we're supposed to be scared of this. Frankly, I don't either. They did not show us that Caesar's Legion was a threat. They showed us a small group of very brainwashed people and just sort of left it at that. And I'm not saying that the Legion can't also be funny. There are bits in New Vegas that make them funny, that make them compelling. But there are also bits in New Vegas that give you a pit in your stomach. You know, I'm not all the way through New Vegas. You can go check out that playlist on my channel if you want to see how far I am at this point. But the part that has hit me the most so far is when Caesar is talking about the Securitron vault and asks you to go in it. And you can ask him, why don't you send your own men? And he explains that, like, he doesn't let his own men see technology because then they wouldn't know that they don't need to be killing themselves in this way. Like, it was such a gut punch of a line because it makes you realize just how deeply brainwashed this group is and how deeply brainwashed they are in a way that resonates with, I mean, what we see with extremist groups today. You have these groups you have these people that want to be part of in-groups so badly. And if you have a group, if you have a cult, if you have whatever that can prey on vulnerable people, and that's what malicious predatory groups do, is they prey on these vulnerable people and they promise them being part of an in-group and they promise them power. And in Caesar's case, you manipulate their sense of honor and what they need to fight for and who they need to fight for. And it is such a good gut punch twist of like, oh, these men are scary. And that's how I felt in the game. And I didn't get any moment like that in the show where I was like, oh, these men are scary. Instead, I just kind of laughed at them for having who's the real Caesar be their main conflict. Like, that's kind of funny. You know, they're kind of silly. They're kind of, ooh, who's the real Caesar on the hill? We'll come back to that at kind of the end too, because in their climax, they've killed so many of each other. Like this group that already had low numbers to begin with now has such infighting that sure, you have a new Caesar and he's really compelling. Like, they picked a great actor for it. Very cool. But he's not a threat. You know? The plot works because it has to, not because it earned that through writing. And this line of the Legion is still out there, they're going to hurt a lot of people. No, they're not. I don't believe that they are. Because as we're about to find out, well, next episode too, is actually the NCR is pretty much back too. So actually the Legion's no threat at all. It's plot holes like that really kept taking me out of it, because it just felt like you haven't earned the right to say that because you haven't built up to it in any meaningful way. Here I have in my notes, is there a bad way to stop a war? Do the ends justify the means? It's not a bad question. It's not a bad theme, but it's too late in the series to be exploring a new central theme. We cut over to the Wrangler. I really like the Wrangler. I like seeing it. That was another jangle those keys in front of me and I'll jump up and giggle and clap and kick my feet because I do like seeing the Wrangler. Again, set design, marvelous. My voice has gotten so much more nasal as I've talked just because my sinuses are building up, but we're almost done. This quote, again, I wrote out of context, but I think it is the Congresswoman talking to pre-war Coop, and one of them says, why can't good people sell it better? And again, it is such a fascinating question, and it's a theme worth exploring, but it feels too late to explore that theme. I would have loved if that had been sort of a question throughout the whole thing. You know, we did explore Coop becoming Vault Boy and how Vault-Tec was able to pour so much money in the advertisements, but then we kind of didn't think about the advertisements more than them being in the background and something for Coop to reflect on as, did I mean to speak for this? And not what it could have been to explore this theme, which is with enough money and advertising, companies can make you think whatever they want. So why wasn't there money behind the opposing side? It was another missed opportunity. It would have been interesting to explore. It's a great line, but frankly, it's too late for a line like that. Then I got mad about the plot again because it shifts the entirety of this universe if cold fusion is real. Because remember, the reason that we are in the resource wars is because there are not enough resources to go around. If cold fusion existed at this point, it could have prevented the entirety of the resource wars. And that might be their point, that like, oh, companies like Vault-Tec, companies like Robco, they had the ability to stop this from the beginning, but there wasn't profit in it. Sure, valid. But it's less fun if there was always an easy answer. If there is an easy, good answer, if cold fusion exists, if we truly do have the opportunity, the power, the technology to make unlimited clean energy to keep everybody safe and happy and fed, it's no longer a question of just, is optimism naive? No, because we have the power to do it. It's a different question if we're operating in a world where resources are scarce. I think that's a more interesting question. We have people like raiders in the games because resources are scarce, because not everybody can be fed and safe and whatever. That is only an interesting question if resources are scarce. If cold fusion exists and there is a real potential for unlimited safe energy for everybody, that means we can clothe and feed and shelter every person in this wasteland, then optimism isn't naive. It's something that everybody in the wasteland must demand. When you introduce cold fusion into this world as like a true thing that exists, it shifts everything. Because, I mean, the entirety of the resource wars could have and should have then been prevented. That's billions of lives lost for no reason other than corporate greed. And if that's the story you want to tell, then you really kind of have to underscore that point a little better instead of what they are doing, which is punching down at Lucy every time she gets her hopes up or tries to show mercy or optimism or kindness. We get the, like, I think it's the menu. I think it's the music on the Fallout 4 menu. I just write every time the Fallout music gets me. Every time they put that in, it gets me. It feels really good. I know I'm whipping back and forth between a criticism of the show and then something I liked in the show, but that is how the show is written, and that's part of my criticism overall, is that we're whiplashing between things so fast that we have this moment about cold fusion, and then we zoom out and we have this cool, like, Fallout atmospheric music moment, and I was whiplashing between these things in the show because I would get so frustrated, and then I would see something that was fun or a set design that was fun, and I think that's why I ended up just feeling kind of bummed by it all, because there was so much crammed into it and not enough time for any of it to breathe. The people of Freeside are so lovely. Great costume design, fun characters. It's funny that Thaddeus's arm fell off, but, like, why? It's not rotting. Like, that's not how ghouls work. And listen, back in season 1 of the Fallout show, I said something in my episode reviews to the degree of, like, Thaddeus becoming a ghoul. And I got a lot of pushback from people that were like, no, actually, he's becoming a super mutant. And there was no evidence to back that up. I understand that we all want to read into the show. I want to read into the show. I keep being wrong about what I expect from the show and what I hope is going to happen and what actually happens. Nobody's wrong for hoping for more than the show is giving us and the writers are giving us. But the writers have consistently now not given us enough to go off of. There was nothing to imply that Thaddeus was turning into a super mutant. And I know people really believed that. That's not what happened. His skin started peeling like a ghoul. And now I'm seeing the same thing happen again with his arm falling off, that people are like, oh, he must be turning into a centaur, actually. Like, we're going to get a different reveal in the games. I don't think the writers have earned enough goodwill from us that anybody can really meaningfully argue that Thaddeus is going to be another thing that's revealed. I think it's just bad writing. I think in the same way that they're playing it fast and loose with ghouls getting the drugs versus the radiation, whatever, ghoul lore is fuzzy in this show. I think that Thaddeus's arm falling off was just funny because it was just funny. I would love to be proved wrong on this. I would love to be proved wrong and have it be that he is turning into something else, but I don't think that the writers deserve our blind faith in that when they haven't given us anything else to go off of. What they've told us and what they've shown us is that Thaddeus is a ghoul. They've said he's a ghoul. Other characters have said he's a ghoul. His arm falling off, it happened because it was funny. The plot works because it has to. That's it. Oh, I had notes here. This is silly. This is minor. But you know what? This whole video has been my petty ranting, so we're going to keep going. Lucy's transformation back into Vault Dweller would have been more impactful if her hair hadn't stayed pretty the whole time. I wish it was an intentional choice. I think it would have been funny. It's always a question in survival games like this. How does a character stay clean and pretty and polished? Lucy's hair, her bangs, bangs get greasy, right? She hasn't washed her hair the whole time she's been in the wasteland. It wasn't an intentional choice. I don't know if it was for game logic that we just all accept that her hair stays washed in the wasteland. I don't know if it was ignored, but it made her transformation back into, like, Vault Dweller in the yellow dress, which looked gorgeous. It just made it feel a little less intentional because, like, yeah, her bangs have always looked that good. I would have loved if they got a little greasy. If they got a little greasy, maybe progressively over time, a little greasy, and then she finally got to wash her hair in the yellow dress. That would have been like a cool reveal. That's a nitpick. That's a nitpick. I can do some nitpicks, and I can admit that they're nitpicks. Then we get the reveal that the mainframe of the mind control was the Congresswoman's brain. Why? I think she's a terrible blueprint for that. They're talking about her like she's this meek woman, because I understand that like her voice is kind of monotone, but she was also protesting inside of a Vegas casino and got thrown out. Like, she's not a pushover. She is a congresswoman or senator. I forget what she is, but she's also not weak. And the show keeps showing us these people like Lucy who are optimistic, like this congresswoman who's trying to help, and instead showing them as meek, and they can be manipulated and they can be taken advantage of. And isn't she the perfect blueprint for the mainframe mind control, because her mind is so easygoing and suggestible? And I don't think she is. What you've shown us is a woman who is in politics, who is determined to make things better. And so she becomes the blueprint for the most pacifist lobotomy brain blueprint. I wasn't following it. That didn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense. In the outro of episode 7, we get like more clips of Canada, which again, it was part of what I loved about the first bit of the show. And it almost makes me mad that we get these cool bits in the episode zooming out outro. Like, there's a sign, I think, at one point that says like the big 51. I want that. I want that. Why is that just in the outro? That's what I wanted more of. Oh, tell me more about that. The Canada bits were the most compelling to me. All right, we're on episode 8. We can do this. I can knock this out. Just kidding. There's so many notes on this one. All right, let's keep going. The line that one of the Caesar's Legion has, a palace for Caesar, Caesar's palace. It's so funny. It's so funny. But again, it serves to undercut how scary they are. I think you get scary or funny. I don't think you get both. And I think it makes them more funny. It is funny. Max is my favorite character. He is genuine. He's funny. His motivation is consistent. I have in quotes here, hot dog. I should have wrote timestamps so I could go back and like quote this for you. I guess that's what he says. The head being alive, and I feel bad that we're jumping so many places, but this is how the show was. The head of the Congresswoman being alive, it's a funny reveal, but why isn't Moldaver in this state? Why isn't House in this state? How did Moldaver survive that long? We just kind of forgot about her because she died in season 1, but we really never explained how she stayed alive that long. I don't understand it. It seems like inconsistent logic, and I think it is inconsistent logic. I think we just have to accept that, again, the plot works because it has to. There's a lot in the show that just works because if you don't look too hard at it, it just works. And I think this is one of those. The head is alive but has kind of rotted, and Moldaver didn't because she didn't. I liked the rad roaches attacking the Vault-Tec employees. Let them be scary. That's kind of fun. I like the rad roach design. That was fun. They're sort of hinting at like who is one step ahead of House, who made the death clause, whatever. And at this point, I'm just confused because like we already know the Enclave exists. That was the season 1. That was the season 1 the Enclave exists. So why are you asking now like who could be one step ahead of House? Like, it's this big mystery. We already know it's the Enclave. That's the only people it could be. And it felt like the show was underestimating us and how much we knew and could pay attention to. Like, it's the Enclave. We know you're talking about the Enclave. The power scaling is bad and it's frustrating when Max is fighting the Death Claws. I mean, it's like in season 1, one ghoul, our ghoul, he took out everybody in power armor because he knows the weakness or whatever. So one ghoul can beat all the power armors, but one power armor can take out all the Death Claws. But the same one ghoul can't take out the Death Claws? None of it makes sense if you look too hard. I think that's my takeaway from this whole show. You just can't look too hard. You can't be paying too much attention. The plot works because it has to. Don't look too closely. Thaddeus saying, I used to make money for a living is funny. He gets some funny lines. He's funny. Okay. Then we're getting to Lucy and Hank, and we're going to jump to a bunch of things after this. My note after this one is too much is happening at once in this goddamn show. But there's this bit with Lucy and Hank where Hank sort of implies that people are already mind controlled out in the world. And for a second, I think that he means, brace yourself, I think that he means Lucy. And I think for a second what a cool reveal that would be if everything I thought up until this point was just bad writing of Lucy being naive and easily manipulated and weak. When Hank says there are already people, like these prototypes are already out and about in the wasteland, like there are already people who are mind controlled. What a killer reveal it would have been if it had been the Vault Dwellers have been mind controlled from the beginning. It would have put everything in such a different context. It would have made Lucy not just like this naive whatever. It would have made her, oh, what a compelling question to be like, is your personality really your own if you've had this like lobotomy chip installed? Does it matter? Are your motivations still your own? I really thought that's what they were going to give us, especially when he was like, it would be so small you wouldn't even be able to tell. Can you imagine if they had like panned over the back of her neck and she already had that scar and we just hadn't seen it yet up until that point? That would have been so good. But of course that's not what happened because I'm overthinking things that the writers have not thought. A good rule for enjoying things, my partner likes to tell me, is you can't think harder about something than the person who made it. And that's why I didn't like this show, because I took notes. I really thought way too hard about all of this. If I just hadn't thought as hard about any of this, I would have had a much better time. Regardless, it felt frustrating to just have him be like, yeah, there are people out there with this mind control chip. That doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't make any sense. I thought it was going to be Lucy. I was wrong. Obviously, I've been wrong about every prediction I had in this show. It would have been cool. It would have been a better reveal, in my opinion. But that's not how it goes. That's not how the cookie crumbles. I also felt like it was a plot hole during the Deathclaw and Max fight that he, broke the barrier between Vegas and Freeside, and then they all started coming through. He's in power armor. He could have just like picked up a car and blocked that back off. Like that felt like a plot hole that just needed to happen. I realize in this episode that this is the last episode of the season and Max and Lucy have been separated the entire time. And there was really no reason for that. Like genuinely, what the like what? It really hit me the wrong way that they tried to set up this couple and they were like, oh, they really like each other and they've thought about each other the whole time. But neither of them in the whole 8 episodes of the show made any move to find each other again. They just happened to encounter each other again because they were both in Vegas at the same time. Is such Deus Ex Machina. It drives me crazy. And you know what? I just said Deus Ex Machina and I realized a thing we didn't talk about because I was too mad about it to even put in my notes is after the ghoul is impaled on the spike and gets rescued by a super mutant. Talk about a Deus Ex Machina. What was that? Again, the plot only works because it has to work. If you think too hard about the fact that he was going feral on that pike and he didn't have more of his drugs, but it turns out radiation can do the same thing, the plot works because it has to. Don't think too hard about it. Their logic isn't consistent. They didn't think that hard about it. Just enjoy it. It's driving me crazy. I love overthinking things. I like overthinking things, and for it not to be consistent bums me out. So anyway, Deus Ex Machina again, Max and Lucy end up meeting again because they just happen to be in the same place. Neither of them have looked for the other one, but hey, the plot works because it has to. It brought them back together. Whatever. I was so mad. I was so mad about Max getting out of the power armor. I was so mad. I can see in my notes I'm mad. I'm like, stupid. Max, why the are you getting out of this suit? You stupid, not brave. I wrote at this point, I like that it's inspiring the others to fight. And what I thought was happening in that scene, because he's getting out of his power armor, he has his, level 1 pool cue weapon, and he's standing out there ready, and everybody inside of the building in Freeside is watching him and being like, what is he doing? He's just a kid. I thought what we were building towards is then all those people were going to be like, we have to protect him. He's just a kid. He's trying to protect us. We have to fight for our own city. And instead, we get another Deus Ex Machina. I've been saying Deus Ex Machina, and I haven't defined it this entire time. I'm assuming that you know what I mean when I say that, and I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. Deus Ex Machina? Deus Ex Machina. Yeah, sure. You know what I'm talking about. It's a plot device. I'll read the definition here. An unexpected power or event saving a seemingly hopeless situation, especially as a contrived plot device in a play or novel. I've been saying it a lot. We should have defined it at the beginning, but hey, I didn't have a script for this video. We're just going. To have this teasing of the residents of Freeside see somebody finally trying to be good, trying to stand up. They recognize he's just a kid. They recognize he's about to die. They have money on the line, but it seems like they're about to set that aside to take their town back And then the NCR shows up instead. Talk about a Deus Ex Machina. I mean, that, first of all, felt like a plot hole because there were two people left in the NCR and one of them got sucked up by Hank for his mind control thing. That first woman who, I guess, contacted the rest of the NCR, she had been saying that they hadn't been in touch with the rest of them for years, but she magically managed to do it and make it there in perfect time. I mean, it's fun. It was a fun scene to watch. I understand. I saw a bunch of people talking about how cool that was as a scene. Sure. But again, I thought the writers were trying to build up to the residents of Freeside fighting back and protecting something of their own, and maybe even leading up to them wanting to revive the NCR and build it back up together. Nope. He's just a kid. Oh, thank God somebody else is here to save us. Just in time. Thank God. What a bummer. Oh, I guess I talked about it too early, but again, this is where Hank is talking about how people in the wasteland are already mind controlled, and I'm truly not sure. I'm truly not sure what he means by that. Lucy, decides to try and spare him because she's like, I want to choose mercy, and also you're my dad, and I believe there's like value here, like we can work together. She's willing to do the work. And again, the show punishes her for that. The show shows us how stupid she was to think that. Like, of course, Hank can mind control himself or whatever. Like, of course, Lucy missed her opportunity and also the agency that she could have had for the same outcome. The show repeatedly shows us that mercy is a mistake, that believing in the good in other people is a mistake, that hope is a mistake. It keeps driving this home. This is petty too. It bothered me that he said you have a smudge on your cheek, but it was clearly just her hair. Her hair was on her face. He said you have a smudge, and then he pushed her hair out of the way. It wasn't a smudge. It was her hair. That's so petty. Oh, and here I talked about the reunion between Max and Lucy too early too. The reunion between Max and Lucy doesn't feel deserved at all. They didn't even try and find each other. It's pure coincidence. It's just plot happening to them. Again, neither of them are really proactive in driving the plot forward at all. Things are just happening to them. Lucy spent, most of her season trying to search for her dad. She doesn't find him. He finds her. Max doesn't try and find Lucy at all. They just end up in the same place at the same time. The plot keeps happening to these characters. The characters are doing nothing on their own to be proactive or make things happen. We flash back to Stephanie in the vault. Stephanie initiating phase 2 is stupid. I mean, she's panicking. She's just panicking because somebody found her driver's license. You're telling me that in the last 200 years of this vault running, nobody has ever had something worse happen to them than their driver's license being found? She left that out in her own home. She left it in her sock drawer. Of course somebody was going to find it, and that was enough to unravel the whole phase 1 plan. You're telling me nothing happened in the last 200 years that anybody got close to figuring out? Actually, somebody did get close to figuring out. And it was why I forget if it was 32 or 33, excuse me. But it was why in season 1, we found that one of the vault had been revolted and there was a bunch of graffiti anywhere. Did we get any answers on that? No, we didn't revisit that. Even a little bit. For whatever reason, we just let that be a reveal that happened in season 1 that we never got any answers on, which is so immensely frustrating to me. But I guess Steph is panicking because somebody found her driver's license, which again, it feels like a massive plot hole. We get the reveal to like who's the big bad of who's one step of house. It's the Enclave. We knew it was the Enclave. It could only be the Enclave. And frankly, it's not really a twist if we didn't trust them in the first place. And they didn't give us any reason to trust the president in the first place. Coop hands over Cold Fusion to the president thinking that that's the right choice. And I understand the twist is supposed to be like, well, how did the bombs drop anyway if he gave it to the good guys? Oh, big twist. The president's not the good guys. I didn't think the president was the good guy. Why would we think that? Because one person told us that? They didn't show us anything. It really feels like another instance of they didn't earn the payoff or the belief or the goodwill from the audience that they thought they had just because they said, give it to the president because he's good. That doesn't mean we trusted the president as being good. So it's not really a twist to then reveal that the Enclave is the big bad because we kind of already knew that. One, it's the only answer and we already knew about the Enclave from season 1. And 2, there was nothing about the president that made me trust him. Why was he in Vegas covertly? You know what I mean? They didn't earn that as a twist because they didn't set up anything to be twisted. They're just telling us this other thing that happened. This quote I have written down, I think is House talking to the ghoul when he finds his family's cryopods empty. "You bet on hope and you lost." And I wrote, well, ain't that just the theme of the motherfucking show? Yeah, anytime you hope for something, the show's going to kick you down. Anytime you show mercy or any kind of optimism, the show is going to kick you down. It's going to make sure you know that that's not true. And then this feels like a plot hole to me too, that there's a postcard in her cryopod. So Barb was secretly working with Coop behind the scenes, and they let her write a postcard and then put it in her cryopod. Like, people would have checked the cryopod. You know what I mean? People would have checked the cryopod, but they let her just write on a postcard, "See you in," what is it, Colorado or wherever, "See you somewhere else." And nobody looked into that. Like, that feels like a weird plot hole, because either she was working with people within Vault-Tec to let her place that postcard and move her to a different vault, or Vault-Tec didn't know. Like, either she trusted Vault-Tec or she didn't. This is leaving a postcard in her cryopod like that. It's not a thing that you can just do. And also, I imagine those cryopods were expensive, and they could have sold it to the next highest bidder instead of leaving two open. Like, that feels like a mistake. And also, we know from season 1 that Coop was with Janie when the bombs went off. We saw that happen. So how did Janie get to Barb and then they got separated and then she also managed to get to Colorado? Like, none of that makes any sense to me. And it's sweet and all that you see that he has hope and he says, you know, "For the first time I know my family's alive." You don't know that. Why would you think that just because there's a postcard? You don't think that Vault-Tec could have seen that postcard and been like, "Well, now you don't get a spot in any of the vaults because obviously from this postcard you're working with somebody," and then just not let her in? There's a million ways that she could have died in the last 200 years, or been thawed out early, or been killed already. There's so many possibilities of her not being alive that for him to say, you know, "For the first time, I know my family's alive." No, you don't. Also, like, it's sweet and all that Barb was on Coop's side and all that. But what is the point? What is the compelling part of a complex villain if they don't stand for anything? If Barb thought that she needed to protect her daughter at the cost of other lives, I think that's an interesting conversation. I think that's an interesting villain. Like I said, it's not a stance I agree with, but I understand it. And I think it's a really interesting question of how far can you go to protect the people you love? At what point are you in the wrong? At what point do the ends justify the means? At what point is anything justified if it's at the cost of your own family? But if she didn't believe any of that, if she was willing to try a different method with Coop and secretly work with him the whole time, then she wasn't really that person at all. She wasn't, sorry, not that person at all, but you got to ask yourself in writing, like, what's the point of a character? What's the point of any given character? And I thought the point of Barb's character was to ask that question, to make that, I think, very valid argument of, if we exist within a capitalist system, if you have an opportunity to get ahead, if people are going to die either way, why can't you take the opportunity to protect your own family? I think that's a really interesting question. I think that's a really interesting character, and I thought that was the point of her character. But if it wasn't, if she was willing to change her mind that whole time, it undoes everything that we've seen so far of her as a character. It undermines that entire theme, that entire question. And that's such a bummer. I think it's weak writing. I think it's a bummer. I do like the character more for her being on Coop's side. Of course I do, because I want her and Coop to be together. I want them to be working together. Of course I do. But I also want the plot to make sense. Anyway, that brings us to the end of the show. I knew from, I guess I don't know what I know this from, if it was from an article or other people talking about it or what. I had a sense going in that people had said that the show wouldn't confirm or deny any part of New Vegas's canon ending. I guess I didn't realize that what they meant by that is just that we can't come up with our own main conflict, so we're just going to copy the conflict from New Vegas, because you end the show in the same place that the game's ending would have already answered, which is Caesar's Legion is coming. Who's gonna win? And it's like, okay, so sure, they didn't canonize any New Vegas ending. They just copied the same conflict. The NCR is back. House is still there. I guess Victor's still there. I was gonna say Yes Man, but I mean Victor. Was Yes Man in the show? No, I don't remember. Fisto was in the show. Yeah, I think we just got Victor. But we have still the main players from the game Yeah, they didn't canonize any ending. They just put us back in the exact same spot that we were in the game. Caesar's Legion is coming. You have the NCR, you have House still. And that's almost more of a bummer to me than if they had canonized something, because if they had, they could have built on it and like kept building more. And it doesn't feel like they're willing to build anything new. I mean, we had 8 episodes where really nothing happened. I mean, sure, stuff happened, but stuff happened to our characters. Plot happened around them without the show actually making any point other than people are bad, hope is naive, and circling back around. Part of the reason I like the games is because it can support my playstyle of I can be kind and the options in the game are genuinely kind. I've talked on this channel before too. I played Outer Worlds, and part of the reason I didn't enjoy Outer Worlds is because a lot of the dialogue options felt cocky or in kind of bad faith, or it was more limited in how you could role play because there weren't as many options for being genuinely curious and genuinely kind. And I know not everybody plays the game that way, but the Fallout games have always allowed me to play the game that way. And that's why I'm so frustrated by the show. And I understand, I understand the people that are telling me, watch a different show then, get out of here, get out of our fandom. This is for true fans of the game. I would argue that I am still a true fan of the game. The games have always supported me being kind and curious and putting rewarding storylines behind those choices. And so to see this show that just keeps beating down on the same points of optimism is naive and coming so close to more interesting themes of like, how come the Congresswoman's side couldn't advertise it better? How come Vault-Tec is so good at advertising compared to other groups that just want what's best for everybody? And then adding these massive plot holes of a super mutant comes out of nowhere and saves Coop, and he doesn't need his jet inhaler to not be feral. He just needed a super mutant to come out of nowhere and help him. And the plot holes really took a lot of it out for me. Again, there were so many things I loved. The set design, I loved. The costume design, I loved. Getting to see these things that I loved in the game so much in a world, like even the combat with the rad roaches and the rad scorpions, delightful. But it also let me down in so many ways. And like I said at the beginning, I think now I'm looking for something to pick at. I'm looking for something to complain about. And the more that people tell me that I'm stupid and that I don't belong here, I think the more I'm doubling down on like, no, the pacing was bad. I mean, we looked at those timestamps together. You have main characters that are flashing back and back and back and forth. Compared to, I mean, I just watched Pluribus. If you haven't watched it, I really recommend that one. That was a great show. We stick with one character, sometimes just that character. In one episode, we switch to following a different character for a bit, and it's done with so much trust in its audience that you really spend time with the different characters following them, and the show trusts you to pick up on what's happening and to follow it. Whereas in this, it felt like the writers didn't trust me. And maybe they were right not to, because we kept coming to different conclusions about things. But the pacing really bugged me. The pacing bothered me more than anything else. The plot holes really bugged me. And then on a personal level, the themes really bugged me. That's it. That's it for this video. This was a super long video. Thank you so much for watching it. If you truly watched it all the way to the end, holy moly, I owe you a Nuka-Cola or something. Thank you so much for being here. Let me know what you thought. Let me know if you liked the show. You can disagree with me. Just maybe don't call me names. I'm delicate. I'm fragile. I can't take much more of this. I love you so, so much. I hope you have a lovely day, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.